Pasta. It's such a ubiquitous part of our diet. We can find it in supermarkets and delicatessens in all sorts of shapes and sizes. You can generally have it from packet to plate in about 15 minutes. Why then would you take fresh ingredients and make fresh pasta dough? Well, I don't know. But the fact that you're watching this video means that you're at least considering it. I'm not going to claim that this is quicker than buying pasta in the supermarket, because this takes time. This is a labour of love. I'm going to show you how to take eggs and flour, and also I've got a filling made out of spinach, ricotta and lemon to make fresh ravioli and tortellini. I hope you try this recipe out yourselves and really enjoy it. The recipe for pasta dough is relatively simple. Well, I say that, my recipe is relatively simple, but you're not going to find a recipe that all of Italy, let alone the whole world, agrees on. There are so many different ones out there. Mine is 2/3 00 flour to 1/3 semolina flour, and then for every 100 grams of flour I use 1 egg and 1 yolk. So here I've got 300 grams of flour in total, therefore 3 eggs and then 3 egg yolks on top. I start by mixing the two flours together and adding a generous helping of salt. And if you mix those up, what you then want to do is tip them out onto your board. Here I'm just using a large table, and you want to create a well in the middle of this board into which you're going to tip the egg mixture. So create that, tip the eggs in, they will directly go everywhere, and you can start working this together. Now, it will very slowly come together at the start. Don't worry, I have cleaned this table before I began. But don't be tempted to run in with lots of extra flour when you first begin. It will come together. Of course, the relative humidity will make a difference, as will the type of flour that you use. So you might find that you need a little bit of extra flour, you might need a little bit of extra moisture. But I just try and bring this all together first before you get to the stage of adding more. So here it's relatively wet, but as I start to bring it together and knead it, it will come together a little bit more. And mine is always just a little bit wet when I first start off with it, because I use those extra egg yolks. So I'm going to add a little bit of flour here. That'll help bring it together. And then what I'm going to do is knead this, once it is all together, for about 4 or 5 minutes, and that helps bring it all together. After that, I am going to put it in the fridge to rest, and I usually give it about 45 minutes. And at that point, it then is a nice smooth ball of pasta which I can roll out. So when you see me next, I'll be rolling out the pasta for you and showing you what it looks like. I just thought I'd show you what it looks like when you finish kneading. You'll end up with a nice round ball of dough. If you try and put this through a pasta machine now to roll it out, it'll be brittle, it'll be hard to get through, and you won't end up with decent pasta. It really does need to rest. So cover it in cling film to avoid it drying out. Put it in the fridge, and as I said, half hour, 45 minutes, and you'll then have some nice soft smooth dough that you can roll out through a pasta machine. My pasta has been resting in the fridge for about 40 minutes. The first thing to do is to unwrap it and cut it into pieces. Don't try and roll it all out in one go, because firstly it won't all fit through the machine, and secondly it will dry out quite quickly. So what I like to do is cut it usually into 4, and then just into one of those quarters, wrap the rest of it back up in cling film, and if you want you can put it back in the fridge, or if you work quickly enough you can leave it out where you are. You take this piece, you can either use a rolling pin at this stage and roll it out, or you can just flatten it down with the palm of your hand. And once you get it sort of flat, vaguely flat enough, it can start going through the roller. When you put it through the roller, you want your roller set on the widest setting to start off with. And if you put it through a couple of times, you can start to flatten it out. But the key thing to do, every time you put it through for the first 3 or 4 goes, is just to fold it back on itself. So you just see there, I folded it back on itself, and then I turned it 90 degrees, and I'm now going to put it through the roller again. And what you start to do is to build up some strength in the pasta. What also happens is the roller comes detached from the table, so I'm going to put that back together and carry on rolling it. I rolled out the pasta by putting it through each setting on the machine at least twice. As it got thinner and thinner, I added a little bit of flour to it to prevent it from sticking. To turn it into tortellini, you need some circular cutters. I've got a set, and you can either use this bigger size, which is about 8 centimetres, or this smaller size here, which is about 6 centimetres. You cut a disc of pasta out and remove the pasta around it. And if I show you with this smaller one first, what you need to do is add about half a teaspoon of your filling. Now, this filling is really simple. It's spinach, ricotta and lemon. I took a packet of spinach and wilted it down in a little tiny amount of butter because I didn't want very much moisture in it at all. Let it wilt and then go cold. And then I added it to equal quantities in terms of weight of ricotta, which means, yes, I weighed the spinach after I'd cooked it. And then I added a little bit of parmesan, and you decide how much you want by the flavour that you want. And then some lemon zest that I'd use a fine grater to get from the lemon. I'm using a spoon, a measuring spoon, to do this because the temptation is to put way too much filling into each tortellini. This way you can control how much goes in there. So you want half a teaspoon in each one, nicely in the centre. And then just wiping my finger on a clean tea towel. And then using a pastry brush dipped in some water, just put some water around the edge to help bring it together. And then quickly you need to fold it over, making sure you eliminate any air pockets because they will pop open as you cook the pasta. And that leaves you with a nice half moon shape. So if we take this half moon of pasta that you can now see, here it is, a half moon of pasta. And if you put it around your little finger, you can bring the edges together ever so carefully and you will end up with a tortellini. There we are. Put those together, just hold them in place for a moment and then it should come off your finger. And there you have it. I'll show you this way, a tortellini. And you can keep making those, so I'll show you. I've got another one that I've made here. There's another one. With the best of you. There we go. Even closer. There we go. I did say that this took a while. If you want to do it with a slightly bigger one, I'll do that one now. Again, I'd probably put just a little bit more filling in this one. You could probably go just over half a teaspoon with the slightly bigger shape. What I would say is this one has spinach in it, this filling. If you had something that was more homogeneous, so it was just some sort of ricotta and something else that isn't like spinach that has clumps, even if you chop it really finely, then you could put this in a piping bag and you could pipe it out. So water again around the edge and then fold it over, eliminate the air just using your fingers to cup around it. Around your little finger, there you go, a tortellini, and that one is a little bit bigger as you'll see. There we go. See if I can make it stand up. No, it won't stand up. Well, oh, there it is. There's your tortellini. To make ravioli, it's even easier. What you can do is take your filling, and you can be a little bit more generous when you're making ravioli. Put it in the middle here, and then what you need to do is get a piece of one of the other sheets of pasta of about the same size and just lay it on top. And as you lay it on top, well, actually some water around it first, good point. That just helps the pasta stick. As you lay it on top, again, just consider that you want to work from one side, working round to eke out any of the last bits of air that are in there. And once you've got those two bits of pasta on top of each other with no air, you could use a circular cutter, or I've got quite a pretty, slightly fluted cutter that I bought in Rome a number of years ago. You put that on top there, and then you can just take the pasta off from round it. Cut this bit off too. And there we go. Now that's okay. Well, that's obviously going to need the edge just sorting out there. Clearly, that cutter I've got is not as good as it used to be. Instead, you've got a nice ravioli there that you can cook. As I say, just make sure when you do this that you get rid of the air pockets. I've got a little air pocket there. So that one I'm just going to push down and just try and get rid of it. If there's too much air in it, you might need to either take out the filling and reuse it or get rid of that one, because, as I say, if the air pocket's big enough, when this is cooked, then it will explode, sadly. You can leave these as you go on a bit of semolina flour, and in fact, at this stage, if you put them on a tray with semolina flour on it, you can put them into the freezer briefly so that they firm up. And then once they're firm, they can go in a freezer bag, and you can freeze them to take out whenever you want to. You can cook them from frozen. I'm going to carry on making a few more so I can then show you how I cook them and finish them off with a little bit of butter, sage and pine nuts. To finish off the dish, what we need to do is boil the pasta and cook the sage leaves, and then when the pasta is cooked, put it into the butter and sage. So I've got a pan of boiling water on here. I'm just going to drop in the tortellini. The butter is already melting. I'm going to turn the water down just a little bit. Just drop in all of these tortellini, and they will cook in, well, a minute or two, because fresh pasta will cook very quickly. While that's happening, put in the sage leaves, let them start to crisp up. And just give them a little shake to let them cook in that butter. We don't want the butter to brown too much, so turn it down a little bit if it's starting to catch a little bit, but you'll immediately get that beautiful aroma of cooked sage, which really does fill a room. Once the sage leaves are looking quite crisp, as they are here, and the butter is starting to colour a little bit, just turn it down completely, and we'll just wait for these tortellini to cook, and they'll be done very, very quickly. The tortellini are done when they float up to the surface as they are here, and what you want to do is take them and transfer them directly into your pan that has the hot butter in there, and they will sizzle a little bit as that happens, and that's fine. It'll just dry off a little bit of the water, which is okay, and you want a little bit of that cooking water in there because it will just amalgamate with the butter and turn it into a bit more of a sauce. So just let that cook away, gets a little bit of colour onto those tortellini. That can go off, and then in order to get them to your plate, I tend to use tongs, so you can just plate up your tortellini from here. And those lovely sage leaves, use them as decoration too. One, two, three, four, five. You can, depends obviously on the size of portion you want to do, but this looks about the right level. I've got my tortellini into the bowl, you can see. It's probably the best shot that I can do. And what I will then do is just put a little bit of Parmesan on top of it. That's a small portion if you want to serve it as a dish before something else. And that's it. That's spinach, ricotta and lemon tortellini, finished with a little bit of sage, butter, Parmesan and a tiny bit of parsley, because I know that divides opinion like nothing else. Thank you very much for watching.